Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin and Rugby podcast. Joining me this week is someone back for cap number 17. Welcome back to Mr. Hugo Gordon.
Thanks, Jeff. Really looking forward to talking about this one.
Absolutely. Considering your cap number 16 was just before the France game. So definitely a lot of ups and downs since then. But
For
listen,
sure.
before we start, I'd just like to remind you all listeners of an extra pod we published this weekend, our 500th episode special, where myself and some of the Harpin contributors, Hugo included, talked about how we got into rugby, Leinster, and Harpin on Leinster Rugby. So do check that out. It's one back in the podcast feed, and it's also on our YouTube channel. Okay, so let's turn our attention to that feature match of the week. Here's a generic 80-word summary of how things went. Ireland stunned England with a blistering first half, racing to a 22-0 lead through tries from Gibson Park, Ballacoon, and O'Brien. England responded via Dingwall and Lawrence, but Sheehan and Osborne extended Ireland's advantage. Farrell's men dominated both tempo and territory throughout. Gibson Park and McCuskey starred, while England often struggled, especially George Ford. Underhill's late score was mere consolation. Ireland's 42 points marked a record at Allianz Stadium, sealing back-to-back defeats for England and spoiling Itoje's 100th cap celebration. Now, obviously, we're going to go into a little bit more detail than that. And, well, last week for the Italy match, we kicked off our rep pod with a critique of Ireland's attack plan, such as it was. So after this performance, Hugo, I think it's only fair we look at how we kind of turned that form on its head, led in particular by player of the match, Jamison Gibson Park.
Yeah, Jamison Gibson Park. What a what a performance this was. I kind of knew, watching it live, you obviously knew he was having a good day. Watching it back, just a nearly flawless performance. Really, even better on rewatch. From the first minute, he is just everywhere in this game. He's playing this ultra high tempo game, constantly putting England on the back foot. Constantly making these little sniping runs. Like a real attacking threat was really, any time that England left a little bit of space for him to dart into, he was moving into it. And obviously that led to our first try. Really quick thinking for that one. He spotted that England had left a little bit of space, and the only person covering it was a prop Joe Hayes. And he just went straight in and scored. And he was actually very unlucky to have another one ruled out later on after I thought a really harsh penalty call against Tommy O'Brien. It should have been a second one for Gibson Park. Um, and just this incredible kind of tempo to his game, incredible just rugby IQ on display. We're mainly talking about attack, but just what we're talking about, Gibson Park, also really, really good in defence. Few massive defensive interventions. He has a huge hit on Ollie Lawrence, who's about twice his size at one stage. It forces a knock on. Brilliant kick chase as well that led to him winning a penalty late on in the second half. The Crowley was then able to score, and just a full 10 out of 10 performance from Gibson Park. Maybe one of his best ever for Leinster or Ireland. I think the best performance by any Ireland player, maybe since Ty Byrne against France in 2024, which is probably the last real 10 out of 10 performance I can remember. So just, a real kind of extraordinary performance from him on an extraordinary day. But obviously he can't do it all himself. And a big part of why the attack worked as well as it did and worked far better, frankly, than it has for all in a while was the pack really being able to get on top of this game in a way that maybe we haven't seen in a while. And the second row, Joe McCarthy and James Ryan, just menaces, just hitting every ruck at top speed, really kind of controlled aggression, not at the kind of the disciplinary issues that we've maybe seen from the two of them recently. Just controlled aggression that meant that I think we won something like 99% of our rucks. It just meant that Gibson Park had that quick ball to play off. And then the likes of Caelan Doris, another hugely battling performance from him. We always look to him to really kind of take on the heavy carrying role. And he made that lovely eye-catching break through the middle in the second half, one step taking out three defenders. Really lovely to watch. But he was ferocious again on both sides of the ball, 20 tackles, but also a lot of carries from him. Ty Byrne, we've talked so many times about what a player he is, but just another incredible day from him. Again, one of those who on another day could easily have been player of the match. Some great defensive interventions from him, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But again, just really effective in attack. He's nearly as sharp as Gibson Park in the build up to the try. He spots that space as well. And late on ahead of Osborne's try, there's a moment where he gets tackled and he's able to kind of turn his back and present the ball to keep the attack moving. And it's just really, really sharp play. Dan Sheehan, who maybe hasn't had the impact in this tournament that we would have loved, but he had his best game for Ireland in a while. We were partly because I think we were able to create a little bit more space for him to move into, but some of his passing really good as well. He sent Josh van der Flier on a run through at one stage in the first half with a lovely little inside pass. and obviously then able to score a try himself and make use of that space. So just the pack was able to kind of create that space, and then we were able to use that more effectively, and our backs were able to get into it a little bit more. And Jack Crowley in particular, a really really good game from him. He missed a penalty early on, late Marcus Smith interception, kind of the only blots in the copybook of what was all otherwise just a really really good day from him. He wasn't the only reason that Ireland played better yesterday. We've talked a bit before about how, the focus on who's playing a 10 sometimes a little bit reductive and that misses the bigger picture of what's going on elsewhere. But his passing was very, very sharp. And his carrying threat did mean that, he was able to help create space for our other running options because it meant that England's defense couldn't stand off him. He kept the scoreboard ticking over in the second half. Just kind of keep that scoreboard pressure on England, and a really, really statement performance from him. Does look like that starting 10 shirt is his for is his for now, and a really, really great game from him. And then just that kind of last element of the attack, which worked really well, our back three. We won the aerial battle, hugely important. We kicked a lot to contest in this game, and we won a lot of those contests. That was something we struggled with against France, but much more effective yesterday. I thought Osborne had probably his best game fullback for Ireland, really had a big impact under the high ball. Tommy O'Brien and Robert Balakoon combined really well, and we'll talk about Balakoon in particular in a moment, but particularly in the build up to our first score, it's the two of them operating together on the wing is so effective, and then later on they combined for that for O'Brien's score as well. So it just felt like the pack were able to create the space. Some very smart kicking from Crowley and Gibson Park then, which our back three were able to exploit. And we'll talk about another one of our heavy ball carriers in a moment as well, Stuart McCluskey. But just felt like everything was firing yesterday, and it just meant that we had space, we had pace. We were able to use that in a way that we hadn't been maybe in the first two games where our pack really hadn't been able to get on top. And it just meant that all of a sudden it looked like the Ireland of old. We scored some really gorgeous tries, really, really satisfying to watch. It was yeah, I mean, there's unfortunately not been too many games recently where Ireland have looked this much of an attacking threat. This was, an Ireland we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was such a contrast to the previous two performances. I mean, we looked at what happened in Paris, in that we got involved in a kicking battle that we were just losing mostly because the kicks weren't accurate. The kicks were going too far, and you can't do that against France. And I think it's that level. I think that general theme of the players not doing what we expect of them. I mean, you said it several times in that piece, rightly so, that the likes of Joe McCarthy, Dan Sheehan, yeah, Josh Van der Fleer as well, haven't been performing to the levels that we expect if we're going to be beating teams above us in the rankings and winning championships and triple crowns and stuff like that. That wasn't happening, and on Saturday it did happen. We got those levels, and it did make it easier for Josh Van der, or no, sorry, for Jamison Gibson Park when the ball was presented for him a lot quicker. But still, he is that kind of player. He's that lock picker in the 22. That tries a classic example of him. We have possession in the 22, but you've got a defense that you need to break down. But he's the guy who can find that extra bit of space, or take a quick tap, or make something happen that'll do it. And on that first try as well, Gibson Park, obviously, he was quickest to the ball, and like you say, getting the ball to him as well from the penalty. But the lead up to that as well, we were talking about our scrums going into the game. That move actually initiated with the scrum around, I think it was the halfway line. I think it was just in our own half. And the progress of the ball from there, I think Tommy O'Brien was just on the pitch. He linked up with Balakoon like they've been playing together all their lives. They linked up well, and all of a sudden we're in the 22, attacking in there. Gibson Park's moving them, defense left and right. All of a sudden, ship a penalty, quick tap, boom, score try. That is what we were looking for. That's what we didn't really see against Italy last week. I was saying about the attack last week, we were scoring tries in spite of our attack plan rather than because of it. And this was, you don't really expect a complete the exact opposite to happen a week later. I don't want to be unfair. We were banging on about Gibson Park, and it was Casey playing last week. But like you say, it wasn't just about him. He needed the other players around him, the 1 to 8 in the pack, and Crowley as well, and the back three as well contributing. But obviously, he's the link man between them, and he's the guy to get the job done. So it was really impressive all around.